All welcome to the 5th ever product talk from the team here at User Interviews. I'm Tucker. I am our VP of Revenue. So I've worked with lots of you, as has our team, and it is a pleasure to have you all here today. Thanks for joining.
I'm Hope Supernick. I'm the Director of Customer Success. My team works with all of you very closely, so hopefully you recognize my name. But we were the ones translating all of your goals for product and making sure that you're aware of all the updates that are going on here on a regular basis.
And I'm Carol Guest. I'm a Director of Product, and I'm excited to share some of what we've been working on.
And I'm JH, head up the product team here at User Interviews. And yeah, I think we got a bunch of cool stuff to share today. I'm excited.
And I'm last. Hey, everyone, I'm Zoe. I lead product marketing for the team and thrilled to be with you all today. I think we're going to start by quickly running through the agenda for the next 45 minutes or so. We'll be starting off with a quick overview of our approach to product, just to ground you in some of the features and updates that you'll be hearing about throughout this session. After that, we'll run through a series of new and upcoming feature launches that can help you with a lot of different aspects of the researcher workflow. So specifically, the 4 that we'll be looking at today are finding more participants for B2B projects, making it easier to build a panel of your own users if you're using Research Hub, ways in which you can review participants faster, and some upcoming integrations that will enable you to use the research tools of your choice. We will be leaving about 15 minutes or so at the end for audience Q&A. We do ask that if you have questions throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A feature within Zoom to post those questions rather than posting them in the chat. They tend to get lost in there, and it's just easier for us to manage. So locate the Q&A feature in the Zoom toolbar, and you can also view questions that others have asked, and you can upvote them so we can answer them in order of popularity. So with that, over to JH to run us through our approach to product.
Yeah, and just to echo Zoe's point, we do really enjoy the Q&A and the banter. It's like a low-tech version of some research and signal for us and what you're all interested in. So please engage. But just before we get into the meat of the content, I thought it'd be helpful to frame how we think about, the value we deliver to researchers and how we approach what we do at User Interviews. And so the chart here is trying to explain a couple things. So we think about research as kind of 2 layers. You have participants, and then you have facilitation. And so you need people to talk to that are going to be a good candidate for your research. And then depending on what your methodology is, you're going to facilitate that research in a different way. And so if you think about our offering, we have Recruit, which is helping you find participants from our network who meet your needs. And then we also have Hub, which is about building up and managing your own panel of users. And we wrap those things together with a team that we call logistics internally, but it's all of the stuff around how you review, move people forward in the process, manage incentives, message, all that kind of stuff to make research actually happen. And we want that to span both of those products. Our view is that should largely be agnostic of where the participant came from, because at that point, you're just trying to get a participant into a session and get the feedback that you need. And so as we go through this, we'll try to highlight the different improvements we're making, what area they're keyed in on, just to give you some way to ground how we think about improving the product for you all. So with that, I will turn it over to Carol.
Great, thanks, JH. So I'm going to start by talking about sort of that bottom layer that JH described, which is our participants, and specifically our participants in our panel, which we call Recruit. So our panel has been growing. It's very large. We have over 800,000 people in our panel, and we're adding about 15 to 20,000 new participants per month. So we have a broad range of demographics and life experiences of people that you can reach out to. Specifically in recent, I'd say over the last 2 quarters, we've been focused on finding professionals for B2B studies. So I want to share some of the ways that we've improved our ability to find professionals. Make sure I can.
Is it not working?
Move forward. I'll let you progress it for me, JH. Thanks. So the first is by getting more data on the professionals that we have. In the fall, we introduced what we call structured job titles. So this is really just simply using the same organization of job titles on the participant side with what researchers see when they're building out a project. And along with that came a hierarchy. So we can make sure that if you're looking for maybe a researcher or research manager in your project, that we can find the people who have those and related titles. We've made we have made or are making 2 additional improvements to our ability to find participants by adding data. One is introducing seniority. So if you wanted to find someone who was maybe a director level or above, someone who could make a purchasing decision, you can do that. And since we've introduced this, we have about 25% of B2B projects are using this field. So we're getting some signals that it's a useful field in how researchers think about finding participants. And the other field that we're adding that I'm really excited about is skills. So think of skills like what you might see on someone's LinkedIn profile. It could include specific software that they use like Miro or Figma, or it could just be sort of like a broader term, like maybe they know product design. And so we've started introducing skills on the participant side, and we already have 35,000 participants who have some skills on their profile. And very soon in the next several weeks, you'll also see on the researcher side, the ability to find participants by skill. So again, our hope is that this becomes a very strong signal. I think it could be even stronger than title in a way to find people who might have used your product or a product like yours. And then, and then the next way, go to the next slide.
Well, there was actually a question here while we're here. It was basically similar to some of your competitors. When do you envision showing the participant's employer? This is helpful to save a question in the screener too.
So let's see. We don't specifically have a plan to show their employer just now, so it's useful feedback. One thing we do is we sort of verify who they are on LinkedIn, and you could trace that to find out where they currently work, but definitely something we could consider to make it more clear that this person has relevant experience.
Yeah, it's great feedback. And one other was, will filtering by seniority and skills cost extra? I can take this one from Kate, but we do differentiate our pricing based on whether you're targeting consumers or professionals, so people based on their professional characteristics. But these things, if you're targeting on professional stuff, this is all included. So it's not like an additional fee on top of that. It just is a new way to target within the professional pool. Cool, we got another one. Let's keep them going rapid fire, and then I'll move us along. Will these new features ensure an extra layer of precaution to weed out, identify fraudulent participants? Great question, and something that we talked about a little bit last time, but it's basically just something we're always doing, is looking for new signals to identify people who are maybe bad actors or misrepresenting themselves. And I think as this person's correctly inferring, the more information we have on profiles, the more signals we have to identify people who may be misrepresenting themselves. So not explicitly the point of these features, but it is a new way for us to pick up on some signal of people who might be misrepresenting their identity, and we'll definitely take a look at using it in that way too. I'm gonna keep us moving, Carol. All right.
So in addition to sort of the parts of building our B2B, our set of professionals that you can see, there's also work happening behind the scenes. I just wanted to share a bit of an overview about what's happening. So on the acquisition side, we're always looking to find more participants in commonly requested occupations. And one of the areas that we've been experimenting in recently is in referrals. So if you're a user researcher, we assume that you probably know other user researchers who might be qualified for the same studies you are. So we're doing a lot of experimentation to help build our referral program. And then we're also helping direct participants toward relevant studies through their own browse, search, notification experience, just to get them into the studies that are more relevant to them. And through these various improvements, we've seen about a 3x increase in the last 6 months of the number of participants that we have in certain commonly requested roles. So we're excited about the progress that we're making here.
All right, jump ahead.
So now I want to turn over to Hub. So this is building a panel of your own users. We have a team that's dedicated to improving Hub, and one of the areas that they've been focusing on in the last quarter is how we add participants to your Hub panel. So a critical sort of first step in taking advantage of Hub. So a small improvement that they've made here is just improving the ability to add participants via a CSV import. So about 50% of researchers, about half of researchers, use CSVs to add participants to a hub panel. And basically the workflow is something like go to your internal tool or your BI team, get a list of users who meet certain criteria, and then upload them into Hub. And we've made a number of small changes recently just to make it more error-free and very clear to make sure that the data that you're importing aligns with your expectation. So that's a small investment we've made recently. The more significant investment that we're working on right now is on building a Hub API. And so there are a few different sort of use cases that we're enabling here. The most common one that we've already enabled is removing participants, particularly for GDPR. So you can imagine that if someone has requested to be removed from your own database and you have that same participant in Hub, you want a way to automatically remove them from Hub as well. So this is one that we support today. We do have an API that can delete a participant for GDPR compliance. And we're building on that API to meet a few other use cases. A common one is to add participants, maybe who you've collected through your own system. So we have teams that we work with that maybe have an opt-in form in a different system, like any number of surveys, Qualtrics, SurveyMonkey, et cetera, that they then want to add to Hub. And so through this API, you could automatically add that participant to Hub. Or if you wanted to just keep your Hub data up to date, so if you wanted to use Hub to find participants who have used a feature in the last 30 days or something like that, the API will allow you to update your participants. So currently this API we're sort of developing toward an alpha. We are actively looking for people to work with us on this alpha now. So if you know that you need an API and that you have a technical team lined up ideally to help implement it, then we'd love to hear from you.
Cool. Yeah, very excited about this one. This is something we want to do on Hub forever. And I'm happy that we're there. And so, yeah, if it's relevant for you, please let us know.
Question from Amy Crew. How often are participants deleted? Are they deleted per project?
Yeah,
Jimmy was talking about within the API, not our panel, but let us know if not.
Yeah, yeah, I'm assuming this is Hub, but yeah, please clarify if not. But a big aspect of Hub and how we try to approach it is that they're your users and you own that data and you can manage it as you see fit. And so we have some teams that don't like data living in other systems, so they'll run research through Hub for the logistics help and the convenience, and then purge that data right away. Other people really see the value in like storing and maintaining a panel of people and knowing when they were last contacted. And so in those cases, deletion is very rare and usually more coming from the user's request of like right to be forgotten or something like that. So it's one of those things I don't really have a straight answer for because it's so contextual on the team. And that's kind of how we view Hub, is that it's the team's participant data and they should manage it however they see fit.
Cool. Great question from Natalie. Whom should we contact and how if we're interested in the Hub Alpha API? Carol Jade, we can put your emails in the
Jade@users.com, Carol@users.com.
Yeah, you can also connect directly with your customer success manager. So myself, Jen, or Christy, and we are helping to coordinate that process as well.
Or you can just ask a question in the Q&A and we'll probably follow up with you proactively. So Natalie, expect to hear from us. Cool. All right. And then I'm going to switch a little bit to the logistics layer. So one thing that we've heard from researchers often is once you have participants, whether we found them for you or you found them from your own user base, you still need to do some work to narrow in on who is the right fit for that given project and that research you're doing. And that can still be like a pretty time consuming and difficult process to go through all the information and sort out who is the best fit. And so we've done a couple things here to make this easier that I wanted to highlight for everyone. And hopefully you've noticed some of them already. But one sorry, let me just move my chat bubble here. One thing that we did in Q4 was we introduced some stuff to just organize the list of participants more easily, right? So we introduced some filters so you could narrow down from your list of 50 people to the ones that are most relevant based on some of the screening criteria or characteristics data. And then we made it easier to carousel through profiles so you could jump around and review people in a quicker fashion. Now that we have that stuff in place, what we did is we focused on the profile itself. And so the actual profile we realized had a lot of room for improvement in terms of how legible and easy to parse the information in the profile was. And so we've approached this in a pretty iterative way, and I'll explain how they kind of tie together. So the first thing we did was around making the information on the profile just easier to digest and more skimmable. And so if you think about things like characteristics or screener responses, that can be pretty dense in terms of the amount of information in there that you're sifting through and reading through. And we realized just from a design and architecture perspective, there were some things that were hurting legibility, making it harder to scan. And so we redesigned that and just really cleaned up how that information is presented. And we've seen really good impact and success and feedback on how that stuff has improved the experience. The second was a little bit different, which is when you're creating the project, there's now a way as the researcher to identify what criteria is most important to you in your decision making. This is something, as we did a lot of our own research, we heard really clearly from researchers is that not all information is equal. Like I want all of this different stuff on my participants, but I'm really going to be making my decisions off a couple factors. And so we introduced this concept of key criteria. So while you're creating the project, you can indicate which characteristics, which screener questions are most important. We're seeing almost half of projects that have been created since that's been introduced are taking advantage of that, which is great. And so those things are both kind of solving two different pieces of the puzzle, right? One is when you have a lot of information, make it easier to scan and digest. And then the other one is let me focus in on the information I care about most and take some of the clutter away. And then what we did once we had those two solved is we've introduced a new overview tab on the profile, which kind of pulls those things together. So you can see all of the key data on the participant in one like high level snapshot where you see their basic info along with all of the stuff that you've highlighted as being key criteria. And so those first two are live and fully released. The third one is something we're currently testing. But overall, we've seen a lot of like good success in terms of how people are moving through the participant review process and getting some good qualitative feedback from researchers as well. So we're really excited about some of these things. And we think the new profile architecture and design in general also gives us some cool ways to extend it further in the future. So that is one piece there. And then there's one other aspect of profiles that I wanted to call out. I think my screen lagged, hang on. Oh, here we go. And these two, the action bar and not a fit, just to tell a little story, I guess, were just really satisfying from a product work perspective. You know, we go out and do a ton of research with you all and we're talking to our users all the time. Probably not that surprising given the space we work in. And what we learned is that, you know, once you find a participant that you like, you know that you like them and you want to move them forward, or once you've decided they're not a good fit for you, you know that as well. And the profiles just contain a lot of information. And so that means scrolling. And so you're scrolling through to find the information you need to make a decision. You say, okay, I got it. This person's in. And then you had to scroll back up to actually take the action and just inconvenient and not a great design. And so through that, we were able to quickly introduce this action bar. So now you have a sticky bar as you scroll. So all of the actions you might want to take on the participant are just always available to you. So once you know and you've made your decision, you don't have to like fumble around to find how to make that official. And then the second piece, which was kind of came out of that same sort of research, was we had an option in there to reject a participant. And there was something about that language that just wasn't resonating with researchers. A lot of people didn't understand what it meant. It felt like kind of a serious final action. And so as a result, it wasn't getting used very often. And that's detrimental in a couple ways. One, if somebody's not a fit for you and you've already reviewed their profile, flagging them as such can help you organize your list. So you don't have to go back and review that person a second time as you're jumping through new applicants or things like that. But the second is it's an important signal for our system. So if we're finding people that we think are qualified, but you actually think are not a fit, having that data in a structured way allows us and our team to realize like, oh, we need to go find additional participants for this researcher. The people we found were actually not a great fit for their needs. And so not having that signal wasn't always allowing us to do, a proactive job on making sure you had the right participants. And so again, these were kind of two smaller features, but really impactful and meaningful. And so since we've introduced them, what we've seen is that researchers are able to review more participant profiles in a shorter time frame. So what we're basically seeing is that they're going through profiles and making decisions quicker, and then also as a result, looking at more profiles in aggregate. And so we're seeing approvals happen faster, and we're seeing more people flagged as not a fit, which again is a helpful signal to us. So a lot of nice improvements that came out of this research, and so I wanted to give kudos to the team for that work. I'll pause for a second. Any questions?
Yeah, we got two other questions. The first from Mandy. Thank you, Mandy. In addition to indicating whether someone is a fit, how can we add our own notes within the platform versus offline?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have an ideal solution for that yet. That's some feedback we've heard, so that's on the team's radar. And I don't have an exact commitment of when we might introduce something like that. for now, there is a way through commenting on profiles that you could leave notes that other people can see, but it's not really attached to the participants. It's a little bit of a workaround. But we've heard a lot of feedback in that spirit of another flavor has been like making your own rating system so that you can like flag people that way as a form of notes, but then just introducing notes in general, I think has a lot of utility. So something that's very much on our radar, but I don't have an exact answer on when we might deliver that.
Semi-related question from Christina. Is there a way for us to tell you being UI, why the person wasn't a good fit?
That's interesting. I think that's something that the matching team is likely to consider on our side. So we haven't gotten that one down to like a more granular solution yet. But it would certainly be helpful for our operations team and our kind of algorithm to have a more structured signal about what about that person wasn't a good fit. But a couple questions on like whether or not that would just be like freeform, or we would try to tie it to specific attributes on the participant. So we probably need to explore that a little bit more, but I'm going to pass that along to the team because I think there's some good stuff to follow on there.
Last but not least on this topic, from Kenzie, will you have a report participant button? For instance, sometimes I'll find a participant has copy pasted answers from the internet and would like to let UI know.
Yes, that one is very top of mind. And Carol, I know you've been working with the matching team to think about where to prioritize that. I don't want to commit, but I think we're likely to do something there. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think there are a few points in the flow where we might want to understand if a participant, it seems like don't know what they claim to know. One thing that we're definitely adding is after an interview, if you find that they didn't know what they thought they knew. Sorry, struggling to speak right now. Then we'll add an ability to just sort of notify us that we're not going to pay them, but you did close the session, just as a way for us to identify fraud. It's an interesting idea to also add it earlier in the flow and something we could definitely consider.
Yeah, I think there's a good likelihood you'll see something in that spirit in the coming months. Cool. And to round us out here, the fourth category we want to talk about was making it possible to do research with the tool of your choice. So basically introducing some testing tool integrations. And a quick aside before I get into this one, but big believer that good products are opinionated, and an opinion that user interviews has had from the very inception of the company is that we don't want to build our own testing tools. And the reason for that is we really want to be focused on that participant piece, helping you find participants for any research project from any source. And so with that, we really prefer to be methodology and tool agnostic. Like we'll find you great participants, and then you can go facilitate sessions with them however you need. But we do recognize that because we're helping with so much of the logistics around scheduling and marking people complete and payment, that we can streamline how our system works with other systems and really improve the experience for everyone by doing so. And so we're really excited to start dipping our toe in that from a new venture and a new set of capabilities to add to the platform. And so we're doing that in a couple ways. The first here is we're going to introduce the ability to connect with participants via Google Meet. And so the majority of research happening on our platform is, one-on-one moderated online sessions. And we have a Zoom integration currently to do that. But when we were looking back through the data, we saw that there were over 2,000 sessions that were conducted using Google Meet in Q4. And we went out and talked to some researchers who were doing that and confirmed that we could make their life a lot easier if we could just have a native Google Meet integration so that the links get generated automatically for every session. You don't have to copy and paste, do that kind of stuff. We're already integrated with Google Calendar. So this is one that kind of just made sense to move forward. So we're going to be introducing that shortly. You'll see that, probably in March. I don't want to commit too much, but that one's close. And then we've also been doing some digging around the Zoom integration because we see that we get a lot of good feedback from it. We've gotten a ton of usage, but we still see some researchers and teams using like manual pasted Zoom links rather than the Zoom integration. And we wanted to better understand what was driving that. And it turns out there are certain teams that really prefer to use their personal meeting room for all their sessions. So if you think about in Zoom, you can have unique links for every meeting, or you can have your like personal meeting room ID, which is always the same. And for the way certain teams operate, it's really more convenient for them if they always have the same personal meeting room for all of their sessions. And we just didn't have that flexibility, and that's something that you can just do through a Zoom setting. And so we're gonna look into introducing that as a configuration you can do on your Zoom integration. So. Those are, pretty straightforward, but really excited just to continue to extend our capabilities there. And like I said, you'll hopefully see Google Meet out in the wild soon. The other big area when it comes to integrations is connecting to a wider set of tools, specifically around unmoderated projects. And I think there's two things here that are really exciting. One is we know that our unmoderated workflow has a couple pain points and parts of friction in there. We've gotten a lot of feedback on that. And so as a precursor to this work is, we're going to go out and improve that flow. We know some of the language and mental models don't line up exactly. So that is coming soon. We have some stuff that's in the hopper actually, and going to be out shortly to improve that flow, and we'll continue to iterate there. The second part is making it so that we integrate with popular unmoderated testing tools. So I saw somebody in there say user testing. So that's definitely on the radar. Maze, look back, all of these different tools, survey tools. And what we think by doing that is a couple of advantages. One, unmoderated studies tend to have a higher number of participants involved. So any manual action, the cost and the pain there is a little bit higher because you're doing that step more times for more people. And the second is sometimes there can be some redundancy of, this person completed the task in Maze or user testing or whatever it is. Why do I have to go back and also mark them complete in user interviews? Like, can't those things just talk to each other? And once one system knows they're complete, the other system knows as well. And so as we design out this workflow, we're very much looking at how we can deliver solutions in that spirit, so we can also save researchers time and take some of the tedious parts of research off your plates. So it seems like people are taking the prompt here, but excited to see what tools you all are using in your stack. We're going to do a lot of research here. But this is one you'll see some stuff coming out, over the coming months. But the unmoderated improvements you'll see kind of just iteratively delivered, which is great. But yeah, a really exciting kind of evolution for us. This is something again that we've wanted to do for a while, but are now jumping into, and I think hopefully it'll be pretty impactful for everyone. Pause, but that's it in terms of the stuff that we have released or is coming soon. And otherwise, we're happy to keep doing questions.
Cool. I can moderate the Q&A. I'm just going to sort these by most upvotes. Okay, so we have from Lauren, how do you advertise/recruit into your B2B panel publicly? And any inroads to really hard to recruit participants such as healthcare pros?
Carol, you want to take that one in terms of, or Zoe, you're on the marketing side. I don't know if you want to share any of our acquisition tactics.
Yeah, I can follow up after this call with our participant marketing team to see kind of how much we can share about our acquisition tactics on the participant front. I think one of the things we shared in this webinar was the referral program, which we're really looking to push toward those in-demand professional sectors. So like Carol was mentioning, if you work in healthcare, or someone else mentioned financial services, you're likely to know other folks, colleagues and friends that also work in that area. And so we'll be actively notifying those folks to make referrals.
Yeah, some of the referral stuff, just to touch on some of the experiments that are going to come out in the coming weeks and months. One thing we realized is we have like a general, we do referrals in a couple of ways. One is you can refer somebody to a specific project, which we've seen good success with, and that's where we get a pretty high hit rate. Now there's a general referral option for participants, so they can just kind of throw their link out and say like, hey, if you sign up at all, they get a benefit from doing that. And then the new one we're gonna start playing around with is like really targeted referrals. So a participant who's been approved on your project, so is like truly like a good fit for that researcher, giving them a really compelling incentive to go out and refer people for that project, because we know that they are truly a good fit for it. And to the point that everyone's been making, that they are likely to know peers that are in that same sort of field and would be a good fit for that specific project and that researcher's needs. So we're really working on those kind of like positive loops and playing with referrals in a couple different ways. But beyond that, we're sort of always doing acquisition in a targeted way for different profiles. It could be on industry, it could be on job title, it could be on seniority. We have a number of signals and kind of like mini networks that we're trying to maintain and optimize. So I don't think we have specifics on financial services or healthcare off the cuff here, but we are always looking at our data where we feel like we're undersupplied and going out and proactively building up the network there.
Cool. Next question from Carrie. This is about key criteria. Is there a way to use these key criteria to filter and sort? Meaning, when I am ready to take potential participants, I'd like to view and or export a list of those who do not qualify on those non-key characteristics / key screening questions.
That's a good question. This is a pretty new feature for us, so we're still getting feedback from people on how they like to use it. And so I think this is one where we can just take it back to the team that's working on it and let them know that having that stuff available in the export and to use it in some other sorting and filtering ways would be valuable. And we can follow up with you from there.
Next question from Zulia on integrations. When should we expect survey tools to roll out?
Survey tools. Hard to say a timeline on a general category. I think what we're doing right now is understanding the improvements we need to make to the auto-moderated flow, and those are happening. And then looking at like the landscape of tools and which ones are being used in our platform currently and which ones are just most popular amongst researchers in general. And then the third part is which of those tools are actually easy to integrate with. Some of them already have publicly available APIs that we can just build into and it's easy. Other tools, it's going to take a little business development to hopefully get them to partner with us and open up some access so that we can pass data back and forth. So it's a little bit of a moving target at the moment, but I know surveys are very high on the radar. So I think, Qualtrics, SurveyMonkey, et cetera. I think we're talking to Typeform in the next week or two about if there's a possibility to use them. So it's actively being explored, but the timeline's a little murky, but we basically have a team that's going to work full-time in integrations for this entire year. And so hopefully we will make steady progress across the different tool categories.
Question from Justin. In terms of building a panel, can you talk about tools you have for automated communication? For example, welcome emails once a user has joined the panel via the opt-in form, and then other emails to keep participants warm.
Yeah, that's a great one. So on the Hub side, we've actually heard this type of case pretty commonly recently, where people want to be able to just communicate with people in the Hub panel outside of projects, or even like potentially offer them incentives outside of projects, just as a thank you for signing up or doing things like that. So we don't have that anywhere explicitly on the roadmap, but it's one, and Carol, I don't know if this rings true for you, but wasn't something we heard maybe like a year ago, and over the last 3-6 months, I've been hearing it more and more from teams. So it seems like something that as people are getting really intentional about how they maintain a panel of engaged users for feedback, we're seeing some new use cases kind of emerge as being more important. So I think that'll bubble up on our radar as well.
Question from Pete. I joined a bit late. No problem. Pete, glad you're here. Are there any additional international markets on the cards for 2022?
Not currently. It is something though where we've internally set up a more structured way to track request and feedback we get on supporting different markets so we can quantify it a little bit. And as we've introduced some other markets, we have a bit of a playbook on how we go out and build up a network there and bring that online. And now that we've moved beyond, the US focus that we initially started with, we're better at doing that. So I think it's one of those things that it's not as big of a lift for us to do as it used to be. But it's not currently on the roadmap. We're going to try to get a little bit more signal on how we could support that.
Cool. And on the topic of internationalization, Lauren had a follow-up about plans to support more incentives in other countries and different currencies.
Yeah, that one's more top of mind for the Hub use case, since a big value prop of Hub, right, is you can pull anyone into it and do research with them. And so if you're doing research with users from all over the world, having a broader set of incentives is obviously really important and helpful there. And so we work with a partner to release those awards, and they do have a broader catalog of currencies and options that we can bring online. So as we continue to iterate and improve on the Hub solution, I think that's where that's likely to start, and then we'll expand it to other markets that we end up supporting on the Recruit side as well.
Couple of questions on meeting integrations. Any plans for other meeting integrations such as WebEx or GoToMeeting?
Yeah, we're certainly open to it. I think this is we're very much in discovery and data collection mode on the integration side. We're trying not to be over biased, but because we have such a historical amount of research that's happened on our platform, we're able to go back and parse those projects and try to understand what tool they used, and we're using that as a data source to inform how we might prioritize things, in addition to just the broader market of what tools people are using and trying to put those together, right, to figure out how we rank these things. We haven't seen in our historical data a ton of usage of WebEx or Microsoft Teams, which is why we didn't highlight it here, but it's very much things we're looking at, and the hope is that as we bring on Meet and we have Zoom, it just becomes easier and easier to add the nth one because we have that flow really figured out. So definitely on the table, but we haven't seen enough signal in our data currently, but we'll keep investigating.
From Neil, we have set up similar personal IDs for Google Meet on our team so that we can use the live stream feature too. So could we copy that Zoom capability for Meet as well?
Cool, Neil, I might, if it's cool, put you in touch with the team that's working on that currently. Our understanding as we've been looking at it, I haven't been super close to implementation details, is that Meet through the integration doesn't support the personal ID thing at the moment. I don't know if that's a Google limitation or we just haven't fully internalized the capabilities of what they support through integrations yet, but good to know that that would be valuable for you as well and understanding that use case. So I'll pass that along to the team, and if you're open to it, they might be reaching out to you.
And last question that I have here for now, unless folks want to add more, from Kenzie, have you considered adding a way to add an attachment, for example, a picture to the message section?
That is a good one. So we thought about this a lot at one point, and what we realized when we went through and dug into it was that most people wanted to provide some sort of document for signature, and they were sending links and this and that. And so that was something we actually pulled into the project creation process more formally in the form of document signing. And with that, we saw a lot of the request and link sharing in our messages go down. So it hasn't been as top of mind, but it is. It's something we've heard a lot historically, but then we thought we solved the component of it with document signing, so it's good to hear it again. So would love to understand that further.
I'm seeing a few more questions from Gil. Do you intend to integrate with Teams too? This is why I personally manually enter links.
I think kind of answered that one before, but definitely on the radar, and we're looking at it, and our hope is that the more video integrations we do, the easier they become to add the next one. And so I think we'll continue to expand there, but I don't have an exact sense since we haven't seen a ton of that usage data at the moment.
From Kenzie, have you considered adding a way to ask a Likert scale 1 to 10 rating?
The Likert, I always forget which way you're supposed to say it, but this is one we've heard a lot. And I think as our matching team continues to refine how we do the qualification and targeting criteria, improvements to surveys, reusing questions, adding different question types is very much on that radar. So they've been doing a lot on the B2B side, as Carol called out earlier, and really helping with that professional matching. I feel like we've made so many improvements there that will probably shift our focus. And I think improvements to the survey tool will come back into consideration as we wind down some of the B2B specific efforts.
Question from Aiden on Research Hub. Adding participants manually is currently limited to a CSV. This has been a bit cumbersome, forcing us to either create and upload a CSV or push some of the form entry onto the participants. Will there be functionality allowing us to directly add participant information into a form and accept them, limiting the amount of entry they have to do?
That's a great use case. Thanks for all that context. One, we should certainly pass that along to the Hub team. I think just the idea of being able to copy and paste or enter emails in a simple way makes a ton of sense, and the overhead of a CSV doesn't make sense when you only have a couple. The second one I'll offer is, I think kind of as Natalie responded there, is something we do internally is you can set up an opt-in form that you just use yourselves, right? And so we have one in our Hub where we'll have people, when like Hope's team or somebody passes along, hey, this person would be good to talk to you about this, like myself or somebody on my team will just go to the form and just put that information ourselves and hit submit so that we put it into the system in a structured way. So the opt-in form, while we certainly present it and brand it, is something that you throw out to your participants and let them fill out themselves. It is something that anybody can submit information through there. And so that could be a workaround for the interim as you're thinking about it.
We have a couple of minutes left and a couple of questions. From Mandy, a question about pricing. My understanding is that all participants cost the same regardless of how long the research engagement is. How can it use fewer/partial credits for engagements which are shorter, for example, a couple of minute survey versus a 60-minute moderated session, cost the same number of credits today?
Yeah, that's a good one. Tucker, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago. No immediate plans. I think that's something we might start to experiment with. I think as we improve unmoderated research on the platform in general, I think this is going to come to the forefront. We think right now our unmoderated experience can be a little suboptimal. And so we think as that gets improved and as we have these tool integrations, the demand for it is probably going to go up. And there could be sort of a mutually beneficial arrangement to change how that pricing works, but we don't have a time frame there. But for our side, right, like we like those unmoderated studies because it gives a chance for a lot of participants to get into a study and have a good experience. And so there probably is some way to bridge the gap, but I don't know, Tucker, if you...
I would add that we do sometimes make exceptions for large unmoderated projects. So, man, if you want to do a B2C survey with 500 people, we can offer custom pricing on that, but not something we offer for our standard plans.
Question from Kenzie about team workflow. We have a team with assistants that often take over getting a project put into UI, and then our senior recruiters go in and review before launch. Right now, the senior recruiters aren't able to edit anything that the assistants have done. For example, the screener skip logic, etc. Do we have our settings set up wrong, or is collaboration on a project pre-launch not possible right now?
Yeah, I gotcha. So that's not possible right now. So only the project owner can edit it while it's in draft mode. And then once it's live, collaborators can edit some of the other information in there. We are actually currently hiring another team for our product pods, as we call them, that is specifically called Team Enablement. So it's trying to improve how teams can collaborate on the platform and build solutions that they need. We don't have an exact, prioritized roadmap yet of the things that they're going to jump into, but collaboration will certainly be in their domain and something I think that we've heard. So should be top of mind as that team gets up and running. So I will just do a general plug that if product designers or software engineers, we are currently hiring for that team so that we can do some of those things. So please send them our way.
Awesome. And a very quick final question in our final minute. Would you ever consider the option to upload screener surveys instead of manually doing it?
We've heard this before. Every time we've poked on it and done some discovery, it seems like everyone has their own kind of way of coding surveys in different tools. And so how you have some middle layer that can abstract all that stuff and then map it into our tool, it's actually a pretty complicated challenge in terms of understanding question type and all the accept and reject logic and skip logic and stuff. So if you have an example of how you do it that you could share, would be certainly interested in taking a look at that because it's feedback we get often, but we haven't figured out a way to do it that isn't going to sort of feel like we're playing whack-a-mole of supporting all of these different import options and mapping things. And so we've instead leaned into making it easier to reuse the screeners you've created in user interviews instead, right? So you create it the first time, and then on your next project, you can pull from your library of past screeners. And we've seen a ton of usage there. So a little bit of pain up front to maybe port it in the first time, but hopefully easier on subsequent projects since you've already set it up.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions. Great job, team, getting through them all.
I think we got to point out, Joey, that today is February 24th, and the team answered 24 questions, which just
magic number.
All
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Sorry, we went a minute over. We will follow up with the recording deck and a write-up of this talk in the next day or so, and see you in June for the next one. Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.